The chair will now lay out House Bill 1403. Rosendo Ticas. Good evening.
Good evening. I am chair members. My name is Rosendo Ticas, and I'm from El Salvador. I came over here in 1986, and I was sent over here by my grandparents. They have a civil war over there at that time in El Salvador, so they sent us over here looking for a better life. And I went to high school, and then I dropped out. I went back again. I got my GED, and I decided to go to Undocumented college. And when I tried to attend they didn't get me an opportunity. They were trying to charge me for out-of-state tuition, even though my family and me pay taxes just like everyone else.
Immediately when I walked into the room, I saw over 200 people. Every seat was taken. People were along the walls, people were in the back, and talking. People were even outside talking and discussing, and I realized right then this was going to be a real interesting evening.
Absolutely critical. They were the turning point of the passage of House Bill 1403, especially on the House side, because it put a face and circumstance behind the issue.
There was an electricity that resonated outside of that room throughout the whole Capitol that night, and we got the impression that people were being pulled from other meetings, or people were being pulled from other conversations in to watch the video monitors in the offices to see this hearing. Because what was happening was kid after kid was coming up with these passionate stories of their successes in high school and their hopes and dreams to go to colleges.
And I hope you're happily married. And I certainly appreciate you having come before this committee.
I was nervous cuando pasé de frente. Recuerdo que ellos dijeron que iban a aprobar el bill y que íbamos a tener mejores oportunidades para estudiar.
¿Usted se imaginaba que anoche que fueron a hacer los hearings, que estaría haciendo historia para cambiar la vida de todos nosotros?
No, nunca pensé eso, pero ahora que veo que aprobaron el bill, pues me da alegría, porque así todos tenemos una mejor oportunidad. Pero no, yo nunca pensé que iba a ser historia. Al contrario, la necesidad lo hace uno hacer cosas.
Right at the end of the hearing, they did sort of a straw vote to see how many people were going to support passage of HB 1403 and if there was going to be any who were not, if they had any concerns. There was one elderly man, Anglo man, who sat at the far left, and he looked up with kind of a sparkle in his eye, and he said, I am not sure how I'm going to vote on this. And he looked at the next speaker, who was a young lady, and he said, I think I want to listen to you. And he says, I'm going to listen to you, and if you can convince me, if your story can convince me, I'm going to vote yes for it. She gave her story, a 4.0 student at Memorial High School. She had studied Korean, Chinese. She was just, multilingual background, wanted to be a medical doctor, just a fantastic background, wonderful speaker, real nice smile. And at the end, she looked at him and she said, are you going to change your mind? And he looked up and he said, yes.
I think that there were a lot of skeptics on the committee, and I think that they began the hearing probably with just the intention that they would be polite and they would listen, but they probably, when they came into that committee room, were not supportive. But I think those children touched their hearts and their minds, and they recognized that it was an injustice to these children to not allow them to participate in the educational system in this state.
In typical fashion, a bill like that will have to, okay, well, we'll put this to the side and work on it, kind of, usually is the approach. That night after the hearing, they wanted to pass it out immediately as a result of the stories from the students.
That was a huge victory. It energized us. Afterwards we left, we felt that, wow, like the political process does work, that the little guy can come and talk to the big guys and they will listen to us.
On a piece of complex legislation like this, where, as I say, there are natural inclinations to be against it, because extending benefits to anybody or extending status to anybody is, particularly immigration related, is always going to raise natural resistance. It's that law of thermodynamics again. In this particular case, the original draft was that we would treat them, in a perfect world, 100% would have been they're treated like everybody else as long as they've been here 12 months, as long as they can establish residence, as long as they abandon domicile elsewhere, as long as they are gainfully employed, and so all the other provisions that Texas requires for residents. It would have been nice. The problem is that they can't be gainfully employed legally, and the problem is that the 12 months got lost in a compromise because they didn't want people coming over here in order to gain residence. So I'd say that we certainly got 100% of what we wanted, in the sense that there was a means for some of these students to get through.
We were able to get the bulk of HB 1403 the way we had wanted it written, which said that you had that if you had lived in Texas for 3 years and graduated from a Texas high school, and you had a parent who had also lived here during that time, and you had not started college before 2001. You had to put some of these little buts and buts in to make HB 1403 be able to fly through, especially on appropriation. A lot of those buts that we had to include at the beginning, especially the one on could not have started before 2001, so get us a zero fiscal note on the bill. When we got the zero fiscal note on the bill, meaning the bill would not cost the state any money, any additional monies, we were able to, it was a much easier sell, especially to our Republican colleagues.
The legislature had switched to have more Chicanos in it. The Chicanos began to understand that the undocumented would eventually become their constituents. Even if they couldn't vote at the time, they had family members who could, and the norm changed. Democrats were still in charge of the legislature, and even though a number of them were conservative, they saw it in their interest to support this.
The bill passed unanimously through the Senate, almost unanimously. I think there was one person who sustained from the House side. The governor signed it. It's the only piece of positive immigration legislation that's been passed in the last 6 years through the governor's office. So this was a real success story. A whole lot of people, a tremendous amount of young people, committed long-term grassroots activists, college chancellors, state representatives, state senators from Republican and Democrat sides coming together, working on a piece of issue that we could all agree would benefit our state.
And the year 2000, the issue or the circumstance of Rosendo Ticas was brought to my attention, and that he was trying to get into Houston Community College. He lived in the neighborhood. He had matriculated through Austin High School and wanted to attend Houston Community College and take aviation mechanics courses, but was unable to attend because it was cost prohibitive. The costs were too much because the community college wanted to treat him as if he were an international student. Although he was in the immigration process, he had work permits, he was waiting on his permanent resident status and so forth, the community college nonetheless, based on their rules and state law, wanted to charge Rosendo triple the amount of normal tuition rates. Well, what that did was that uncovered a broader problem and issue. And doing some work with the University of Houston, Michael Olivas, Tacho Mendiola, and others, we were able to do a survey of, well, how many other kids in our neighborhood, at Melby, at Chavez, at Austin High School, at Ama, are in the same circumstance as Rosendo Ticas. Well, it turned out that within all of HISD, it really uncovered a much broader problem or challenge of kids not being able to go to college because it was cost prohibitive, and that their immigration status was still in some limbo based on the immigration process.
¿Cuánto tiempo trató usted de inscribirse a la escuela?
Aproximadamente como unos 4 años, creo.
O sea, que en 4 años estuvo tratando de ir,
Sí.
¿no?
Ajá. Cada vez que iba a entrar al colegio, siempre me ponían excusas. ¿Por qué razón no podía estudiar? Y ya cuando me habían escrito, ellos llegaron, me preguntaron que de dónde era, que si era americano. Yo les dije, sí, soy americano, centroamericano. Yo no les dije que era norteamericano. Entonces ellos creo que malentendieron, y como la mitad del semestre me mandaron a cobrar más dinero, y yo tenía dinero más para pagarle, entonces me salí. Y fui a buscar a Rick, busqué ayuda con varias personas y no encontraba. Entonces alguien me recomendó con Rick Noriega, y yo fui a hablar con él, y él me dijo que me iba a ayudar, iba a buscar la forma de hacerlo.
Rosendo's story symbolizes and typifies a lot of what is happening with a lot of our immigrant students that are in the system, whether they're valedictorians or top of their class in other ways. It is symbolic of the 8,000, according to Higher Education Coordinating Board, over 8,000 students have taken advantage of the opportunity to seek higher education as a result of House Bill 1403.
I think I got involved in this issue in the early 1990s when I received funding from Professor Michael Olivas to do a study of undocumented students in higher education. So it was a crew of other student researchers. We went around the Houston area, and we talked to students in high school who were getting ready to graduate and had thought about going to college. And we found that there was a large number, and that they came from different backgrounds. They were Mexican, Salvadorians, Guatemalans, etc., young men and young women. And I think they represented like a big irony, because many of them were like top students in their class. Some of them even had scholarships, right, to go to college, but at that time there was no way for them to go, and they were like coming up fast against this like wall or something, where they realized they'd done well in school, in high school, but they realized they couldn't transfer over to college because they were undocumented. They didn't have papers. And you could tell in our research as we talked to them that many took it really badly, and I mean, it's understandable. But I remember one telling me, look, all through college, all through school, my teachers told me that I should study hard to go to college, and I did all of that, and now that I've finished, I'm not allowed to go to college. So we found like a lot of kids who were like almost in shock. Some of the young women we interviewed would cry because they got scholarships to go on to college, and they couldn't be accepted. And so it was clear there was a big issue here, and it was going to get bigger because immigration continued. In fact, we know now that it's after 1990 when more immigrants come in than before.
I became a House Bill 1403 student when my visa expired. I came here with a visiting visa, and it expired in 2002. And right before we were thinking of doing something like adoption or renewing, 9/11 happened, and we decided, well, let's not mess with the INS for this time, because maybe if we try to do something now, then it might be likely that they will not grant my extension, because I had already started school. So we were fearing that, well, if I do something now, it's probable that they will not grant me to continue staying. So let me just finish high school, and then after that we'll see.
Yo calificaba para ese bill, sí, porque los documentos míos estaban en trámite. Entonces, yo apliqué para arreglar mi documento desde que estaba en la middle school. Y la excusa que me dio el gobierno fue que por razones de seguridad.
I came to the U.S. under the visa waiver program, which is like a deal that developed nations have with each other to more or less let each other's citizens in for a maximum of 90 days so that there would be a tourism industry in between developed countries. And the 90 days ran out on November 29th, 1999. So for the last 6-7 years or so, I've been an HB 1403 student.
In Europe, it's a little bit harder for the people of African descent to get jobs. So since here it's very undiscriminative, it's easier here to get jobs as a college graduate than back in Europe.
The truth is, France is rife with racism about its Arab or African immigrants. So we probably came here also because there was more opportunity as towards becoming a success in life. As towards France, it's really like there's a glass ceiling if you're anything other than French.
There are many consequences of undocumented immigration, and there's a huge cost that's paid by the immigrants themselves. And this ranges from dying in the deserts and dying in the Rio Grande to cross over, to being exploited in the workplace, to being denied medical service. And there's an additional cost, and that is the children who are undocumented, that they're denied, I think, what's a certain basic right, the right to an education. I think if you look at society, that's pretty clear that there's a moral imperative here, that anytime children are in the presence of adults, adults have a responsibility for children, even if they're not your own children, even if they're of a different race. And that responsibility is the education of children. It's got to be a basic human right. So what we're doing here was denying them this right, simply because they don't have papers. Knowing full well that the children don't decide to migrate, that it's the household, it's the family, it's the parents who make the big decisions, right? It's a form of punishment, or you're being excluded, because you don't meet a certain label or you don't have a certain certificate.
As a House Bill 1403, I did get to go to school, but there are some things when you start that I didn't get to experience, which is not as important as really getting the education that one day it's going to feed you. But I think it's also part of the college experience. And
things like what?
Living in the dorms, being able to stay if I needed to study till late, I can just stay in school and just go back to my dorm, because I don't drive and I don't have a car. So if nobody's taking me home, I don't have much chance to stay back in school to continue studies. I have to leave home. I have to leave early to catch a bus before it gets too dark and too dangerous.
It took me 3-4 trips down to the registration office at HCC to establish tax returns and residency and evidence of living here for 3 years. And this I just have to wonder about. I bring her my transcript of high school that shows that I went to high school sophomore year, junior year, and senior year in Houston, Texas. Yet I have to bring another tax return to show that I've been here that I've been in Texas for the last 3 years. I asked her, the obvious question: how does one go to school 3 years in a row without living in the same state?
We can't get an ID. We cannot get documents in order for us to drive. So it's a problem for us as House Bill 1403 students to commute to school. So I think a little bit has been taken away from House Bill 1403 students as far as that is concerned, but that's not a major concern because at the end of the day, you're still going to school, and at the end of the year, you're still going to get your degree. It's just that for us, it's a little bit, well, let me not just say a little bit, for us it's harder. For us it's harder, and that's what I think.
We did an analysis and we found that within our own Academic Achievers program, those students that were 1403 tended to have higher GPAs, grade point averages, than those that were not 1403. They also tended to be in majors which were demanding, like business and engineering. Okay? So then I thought that was extremely interesting, but I was not surprised because I had already sort of began to decipher the issues behind immigration and their work ethic and their ambition. So then I asked the university if they could provide me with the information for all 1403 students on campus, if they could give me their GPAs compared two ways, with other Latino students who were not 1403, and then just with non-1403 students in general. And we found the same trend. There is a tendency for 1403 students to do better academically than students that are not 1403. So I think that's very positive.
Currently working on a book on undocumented college students at the University of Houston, and have been interviewing a number of students in the last few weeks about their kind of life experiences, educational experiences regarding their documentation. As a general rule, at least so far, the ones I've interviewed there are like super hard working kids. Like they don't sit at all, nobody sits still. They move, they look for work. They've always looked for work. They don't sit still. They don't sit around and watch TV. They have jobs or two jobs. They study. They do everything they can. They like whatever they get involved in, they totally knock themselves out. And it's really a hugely striking difference to the general kind of undergraduate group of students I've had the last few years anyway.
When you first come to America, you just have too many images that tells you that, oh, this is how America is supposed to be. But when you actually get there, it's nothing that you have thought it is. So it's overwhelming as a foreigner. But after a while, you get used to it.
The main thing is that the motivation and the drive is amazing. And the creativity I'm seeing, when they're talking to me about the different things they've done over the years, or the different ways they found work, or just, or even their families, how creative the families have had to be once they came here, and the things that the dads had to deal with for the different kinds of jobs, or the moms that they had to deal with. I think it's just strikingly incredible, fascinating how just full of energy and creativity and desire they have to do well.
Learning English was, I guess, something that just happens through osmosis when you're young. It would probably have been harder if I had come here when I was older, but when I was 12, I still knew my French, and it took me 6, 8, almost a year to be fluent in English, but I really learned it through TV mostly, and reading Goosebumps and watching The Simpsons, and talking with people and then learning the slang. I was living in California then, and everybody said dude, so it was it was a fun experience, I guess. As soon as I learned English and was able to get rid of this horrible French accent, it was pretty much easy for me to fall in with the crowd that looked like me, And I mean, I'm still African, but I can more or less blend in with a group of black guys. So I guess that was my big group for most of it pretty much still is, since I would say 50% of all my friends are African American. So it's pretty much how I got assimilated to American life, through my connection with black people.
When we began to look at students who are undocumented, college students that are undocumented, it begins to fill out the image, the popular image that's in the media about who the undocumented people are. The image is that they're primarily male, young, holding unskilled occupations and being poorly paid. And clearly, you can understand why, because that's probably the majority of them. But that's not 100% of them. We have undocumented who are also pursuing college degrees and doing better than native-born Americans and pursuing difficult degrees that are demanding. So it begins to flush out the picture. But that's not a picture that you hear very much about, right? Unfortunately.
Me gradué y comencé a trabajar ya en una profesión, ya digamos, ya ya la vida me ha comenzado a cambiar ya. Ya puede tener uno un salario más decente para mantener la familia y mantener los hijos. O ya puede tener un mejor futuro. Ya por lo menos puedes tener sueño de tener una casa propia o seguir estudiando, pagar el colegio y seguir estudiando, porque ya puede uno hacer esos pagos. Mientras que si sin estudio o sin oportunidades no pasas del salario mínimo, cual es imposible mantener la familia con un salario mínimo. Entonces, gracias al 1403 y Rick Noriega que me ayudaron, ahora ya tengo una vida más estable, con un poco más de oportunidades.
The thing that I'm fearful of is because of all the the hate-filled discussion as it applies to post 9/11, especially as it applies to immigration reform. It allows those that have other agendas, which isn't really about national security, which isn't really about immigration reform. It's really about their agenda of being hateful people. If we allow them to dominate the debate, we will see House Bill 1403 repealed if we allow them to rule the day.
Well, a number of students are out here today at Lee High School. I want to bring attention to the fact that they're very concerned that certain gubernatorial candidates have said that they would repeal HB 1403 if elected. So this is their way of saying that if this law was repealed, that their chance at higher education would be cut off, that they would be silenced, that their hands would be tied, that their mouths would be taped shut, that their ability to move forward, to have a chance at higher education would be cut off.
My personal view is that they are closed-minded, narrow-minded people who lack vision, who lack empathy, and I think that anyone in the legislature who would vote against it does not have the best interest of the state at heart. I think that they're pandering to a very narrow, small minority of vocal citizens, but I think that in the end it won't succeed.
Es duro para las personas que quieren estudiar y no pueden, es duro, difícil, porque ves tus sueños truncados. Entonces es difícil. Pero muchas personas no saben de eso porque ellos no han pasado por ahí. Ellos tienen la fortuna que nacieron aquí en Estados Unidos, entonces ellos no les importa lo que otra persona sufra o los sueños de otra persona, lo que ellos quieren lograr, a ellos no les importa.
So when I read articles like this morning about Utah, the state of Utah, read about a Democrat representative who said that if she was asked to vote for in-state tuition today, she would vote no, she would vote not to pass it. Because her constituents say it's not a good idea, that undocumented immigrants should not be receiving state funds. And I just drop my head and I say, how cold, how callous, how short-minded. That within 4 years, you change your mind from, oh, I support in-state tuition to, oh, now I do not. And her argument is that Congress in Washington has decided not to fix immigration. So now it's up to the states to fix it. Okay, so we're going to fix immigration by yanking hope out of young people's lives. It makes no sense to me. I don't get that. I don't understand that. Say, well, maybe Mr. Johnson, that's because you've only been teaching for a few years. No. This is my 20th year. My valedictorian and my salutatorian this year are undocumented.
I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now, because as soon as I got my high school degree, I will probably go back to Italy and probably try to continue my education from there. I think once you finish high school here, you still have to go back and take another year of high school in Italy, and then you can get your what they call maturità, and that's equivalent to a high school degree, because their high school is 5 years. Here is 4 years. So that's what would have happened, and I wouldn't have been able to go. I would have been able to go to college. Actually, college is quite inexpensive in Italy, but the thing is that wherever you go, if you have a degree that says, I got a degree from America, chances are that you're going to get a job then, versus the other person, I got a degree from Bogotá or other place.
Con solo ponerme a imaginar me da tristeza, entonces casi no me gusta pensar de lo que pasó del pasado, porque me da como una frustración, que yo creo que si ellos no me hubieran hecho la vida tan imposible, a lo mejor yo ya fuera ingeniero o tuviera otra carrera. Me siento como mal discriminado, ¿entiendes? Por eso. Y no sé, la verdad no sé dónde estuviera ahorita. No me gusta ni pensar en eso.
I have the faith that something will work out is what keeps me going to school. And my mom. My mom is a big part of that. And she motivates me all the time. And she doesn't like what I'm doing really, but eventually it'll pay off. But at least she's the one who tells me. And my dad also. I mean, he doesn't tell me all the time, hey, you know, but I can hear it every time that I hear him that he's proud. My daughter's going to school, she's doing good, things like that.
El deseo de progresar, el deseo de tener un mejor futuro, como muchas personas quieren tener un mejor futuro para su familia. Aparte de eso, pues mis abuelos me mandaron para acá a Estados Unidos, a eso, para un mejor futuro.
I want to go to law school as soon as I'm finished with undergrad. I got a pretty good number on the list. I don't know if HB 1403 applies to law school, but that's what I'm planning anyways. I'm trying to get admitted to the bar. I don't know what kind of law I'm going to study, but most likely either immigration or intellectual property or health law, or just law theory.
Los planes para el futuro mío, pues espero a lo mejor el siguiente año seguir estudiando para ingeniero.
¿Ingeniería?
Sí, ingeniería. Mecánica. Sí.
¿Dónde quisiera ir?
Donde sea más barato, donde sea más barato pagar. Sí, allí quisiera ir a, no sé, a lo mejor a la Universidad Purdue, no sé, lo he oído mentar, pero o si no, donde pueda ser que yo me pueda pagar, que sea más económico, allí quizás. Es como un deber, una necesidad que uno, ajá, sí. Porque yo ando trabajando con ingenieros, entonces me da no sé qué ver a los ingenieros. Yo digo, yo fuera el ingeniero que estuviera aquí, no que ahora soy el mecánico. Entonces, pero así es la vida. Lo malo es quedarse de brazo cruzado y no hacer nada. Porque si uno se queda de brazo cruzado, ahí ya se da por vencido. Esos son mis planes para el futuro. Y tener una familia y hijos y que ellos estudien y sean profesionales para que puedan aportar algo al país y ayudarle a cualquier persona que yo pueda ayudarle, que quiera estudiar, ayudarles a ellos así como me ayudaron a mí.
Where I really want to see myself in the next 10 years is back in Europe, established as an interpreter, and having several businesses here in the US. And not really monitoring them, just picking up checks. And that's the romanticized version. But the realistic version is probably I'll still be working as an interpreter, but I'm not sure whether in the US or back in Europe. Either ways, I'll still be working as an interpreter. And I don't think I'll have a family by then. I'll still be working, trying to get that money. I don't want to say that that's what I'm focused on, but in order for you to build up a family, that's what you need to plan for. So I'm mostly working in 10 years. Hopefully I'll be a citizen in 10 years of the United States, obviously. Other than that, nothing pretty much. Successful. 10 years, successful. Going hard.
So I think, since the 1980s, when I was doing research in other areas of the state and meeting undocumented kids, that the build up to House Bill 1403, right, was a major victory for undocumented communities because it allowed their children to go on to college now. And not every state in the union has this, we know this. But it's major. Of course, now the other hurdle that's in front of the youth that are going to college is that after they graduate, and if they're still undocumented, what are you going to do? Now you're an unemployed college graduate. This means you've crossed one hurdle, but there's another major hurdle, and that is the hurdle to reach legalization. And I think that relates to the big movements that we're seeing today across the country of immigrants, right? There's another victory that has to be acquired, and that is entry into the labor force. So when you have a degree in sociology or architecture, or chemistry, whatever, that you can use that training to fulfill your destiny, right? To fulfill your capacity, your potential, and then to fulfill your humanity in that way. So I think there are more hurdles to push, but hopefully there'll be more movements that can accomplish this.
You must be vigilant, and you must organize, and you must know what your rights are, and you must protect those rights. And there's different ways to organize and different ways to flex your power. Clearly the vote is one, but that's only one. There's economic boycotts. There's petitioning your government for grievances. And certainly never give up your constitutional right to protest.
Your job is to stay in school. We cannot advance as a community if you don't get educated. Your job is not to hang out. Your job is not to work while you're in school. Your job is not to be a financial supporter for your family. Your job is to be in school and to work hard and to make it possible so that the day that these other changes that we're all advocating for occur, you can take advantage of them. The worst occurrence, in my view, would be that we're actually successful here, and then we have a gap because students have been coasting.
We're having to overcome a lot of prejudice and a lot of racism, and this takes time. But this is not the time to lose hope.
It's just really important to remember that what comes at you from the outside, like from the media, oftentimes is wrong, and to remember that you know inside what you really are. And it's real important to always remember that.